Hello and welcome back, lovelies. Today I wanted to talk about something that is very near to me, I guess, and that is POTS. I recently spoke to someone who is in the process of being diagnosed for POTS, and she brought up some symptoms she didn't think had to do with POTS, but they very much do. So I thought I'd make a video, discuss all the symptoms so that hopefully it will cover those bases. So first off, POTS is a form of dysautonomia, and dysautonomia is a dysfunction in the autonomic nervous system. Your autonomic nervous system controls those automatic processes like blood pressure and heart rate, all the fun stuff that you can't control by yourself, mostly. And so this can spread all over your body. It can control things such as salivation, heart, pupils, lungs, digestion, and so much more of your body. They don't really know what is the main cause of it. The disorder has many things that it shares in common, but the main reason is still yet to be found. They have noticed recently that people with COVID can develop POTS as a result of having COVID. So that's been a fun thing that some people have had to go through. I have met some people that have had that, and it's not fun. So I'm gonna read off the symptoms because there's quite a bit, but I want to discuss them, how I see them in my body. First off, dizziness or lightheadedness, especially while standing or up or standing for long periods of time or long walks. I have this issue quite a bit. I can't stand up for very long, so my chemistry class, they don't provide chairs. You stand for 3 hours. And obviously I will pass out way before then, so I have to get accommodations for that. And part of that, the dizziness and lightheadedness, is because of blood pooling. And so a lot of people with POTS, I specifically struggle with this, is the blood pooling, and all of your blood starts to pool in your feet, and your blood vessels aren't correctly moving the blood back up into your body, which is when you get these feelings of dizziness or lightheadedness, and that's because you don't have enough blood in your brain, basically. So another thing is fainting or near fainting, especially during position changes. So POTS, I should say, stands for postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. And so it's all about position and changing those positions. And it may be something as simple as standing up from a chair or going from laying to sitting up, anything like that. And so what will happen is pre-syncope. Syncope is fainting. And for me, I just mainly get pre-syncope, which is all the way up to where fainting is, just without blacking out and waking up on the floor. So it can cause things like I can lose my vision, it can fade into darkness, or all of a sudden my hearing will go out and everything is muffled and I just hear this ringing in my ears. Another thing is you can feel through your whole body, it's tingling. There's a lot more to it, but the main thing is noticing maybe you're losing your vision or your hearing, or you feel very sick and you feel your body is dropping inside, and it's not fun. A lot of that is from blood pressure, specifically, but not everyone with POTS I think has blood pressure issues per se. I'm not quite certain about that, but I have particularly sucky blood pressure changes. Next is a big one, which is brain fog, or this difficulty focusing or retaining memory. So in the beginning of all this, my first symptoms were that pre-syncope, and I had gone on a roller coaster and lost my vision for the entire ride. I was fully awake, I knew what was happening, I could feel the wind on me, but I couldn't see. And so that was my first thing. And then after that, a few months after, like there was all these other issues. But the main thing was the brain fog that I developed, where one night I was perfectly normal and the next, like a few minutes later, I was like completely unaware of my surroundings. It's that feeling of dissociation, but it never went away. I had it for years, and I still get it if I don't take my meds. So it's kind of just like not being able to mentally connect to your surroundings at all, and just being so confused as to what's going on and not being able to remember what's happening. So like, I couldn't even remember what I would eat for breakfast that day. That was how bad my memory was, is I just couldn't remember anything. And it was really rough going through high school. I like this, don't recommend, but it's rough. And it's rough because you feel kind of numb, but it's not something that could go away with depression medications. It's something that honestly may never go away. That's so happy, right? With a lot of my treatments, I have gotten rid of it and I'm mentally clear now. For the most part, I still have a lot of bad days, but nothing like it used to be. Another thing is heart palpitations or heart rate changes, like racing heart rate. For me, especially towards the beginning, I would just be laying down and all of a sudden my heart rate would spike and it would jump up to like 130 for no reason whatsoever. I also noticed this happened in the mornings. So what would happen is I would get up from bed and like I would go slow, but my heart rate would still jump to like 150, 160, and I was literally just getting out of bed. It's just like random heart rate changes that are not appreciated, basically. Another is nausea, and you especially get this with your lightheadedness or the pre-syncope symptoms I was just discussing before. Next is the exhaustion and fatigue, and this I know is really hard on people, and it's pretty rough with me too. Just not having any energy, like no will to get out of bed. It's a lot like depression in that you don't want to do anything and you can't do anything because you don't have the energy to do it. And it makes it really hard to connect and want to be with people and whatnot if you're so exhausted. I find, like, I've always had this, but like my social battery, I guess, just the energy I can spend on people is very limited because I don't have a lot of energy to give in the first place. And another thing with fatigue, especially with POTS, is you don't want to intake coffee because coffee just triggers your autonomic nervous system and makes things worse. I learned this sadly when I drank coffee once here to stay up late, and I drank it at like 7 p.m. and it triggered my autonomic nervous system and I didn't fall asleep till 4 a.m. because I couldn't. My body was just going crazy. And it was very little caffeine, and it did that. Another thing is definitely that feeling of nervousness or anxiousness, because it does, POTS and dysautonomia control glands that produce anxiety hormones, which can make your anxiety and nervousness even worse. Another thing is shakiness. I noticed this a lot with my heart rate problems and my adrenal problems, is I get a tremor and my whole body can shake often, and also a lot of excessive sweating. One part of dysautonomia is often people get temperature issues and temperature regulation problems. I cannot regulate my body temperature, and it can cause me to overheat very easily. You get very sensitive to temperature, or I'll be freezing and for no reason, even though I've just been sitting there doing nothing and there hasn't been a change in the air. It's just something my body does. It's like that hot and cold like you get when you have a fever, but it never goes away, and you can get extremely sick if you overheat. Next is the shortness of breath, that is a fun one to have because it makes literally doing anything so difficult, like you're about to pass out. So I get this with like very little effort. Going up inclines, especially like stairs, I get extremely sick from, even if it's like one flight. Or going up a hill, my breath like goes completely out and I start to get really sick. My heart rate jumps, I get nausea, all the fun stuff with that. Also common chest pain and headaches, specifically migraines, which I do get. I don't recommend. I have issues also with gastrointestinal issues, and that can affect bloating and gas as well as your kind of processing. Another thing you can often notice, other people will notice, is a pale face, purple discoloration in the hands, especially when they're lower than your heart. Disrupted sleep from chest pain, racing heart, and sweating. I have particular issues with sleeping and falling asleep, as well as just getting that racing heart for no reason. Like you're just laying down, it doesn't make sense. And then sweating during sleeping sucks. I'll just wake up in the middle of the night and be drenched. And thankfully, like some of my treatments have stopped this issue, which I'll get into later. But it's not fun. Another thing is blood pooling, which I discussed a little bit earlier. This is common, especially for people in showers. I struggle greatly and require a shower chair because I get such severe blood pooling that my feet turn black on the bottom and all of my blood is in my feet, and so I'll pass out. So I have to sit down most of the time for that, and I also can't put my hands over my head. That may be more of a blood pressure issue. And I get random blood pooling in different parts of my body. So I'll include a video that I actually took last night. I got a new blood pooling symptom, which is my nose turns bright red. And it's not from temperature changes or anything, it just does it. And I'll get pooling there or in my ear. I wanted to show some fun blood pooling in my nose, which is why it's all red. It's going away a little bit. And then I'm getting it in my ears. And see? Or just on my face, random patches on my arms and stuff. Or like I get a particular problem where I get blood pooling in my hands and they fill up with blood like as much as they can. And they're bright red and hot and it's super painful. There's also blood sugar level fluctuations. I've had problems where if I didn't eat, I'd pass out, and that's more of the hypoglycemia aspect. Balance issues, I struggle with this a lot. I'll just fall over all the time. I'm just like, thankfully, like I usually have people with me, because I'll just like start falling over and then I can grab them and they can help me stay up. Mood swings. This was one I definitely struggled with a lot. I have mood regulators in me now that keep it chill. Intolerance to exercise. This was a little of what I was talking about earlier with getting sick on inclines or stairs. Basically anything that gets my heart rate up makes me very sick and my brain gets very foggy and I get tired and like overwhelming fatigue from doing any exercise. Even though it does help my mental health eventually, it also causes a lot of problems in the beginning. Another thing is the shakiness I was talking about before and those tremors. I cannot do lab experiments because I shake too much and I kept spilling chemicals everywhere. It's horrible. And the one partner I had at the time like yelled at me because I couldn't do it, and it was like, I can't help it. And I also struggle with sensory sensitivity. It goes hand in hand with anxiety, where like it can trigger these other issues just by noises or light or anything like that that will trigger it. I had this problem in class, especially where I've stopped going to my chem class because she turns the volume all the way up and I like can't handle being in there when she does that. So I either put my headphones in or I just stay home like I normally do. We'll talk about what makes those symptoms worse, and I'm only giving a few examples. Main ones are warm environments, being up and standing up for long periods of time, and dehydration can all affect and make your symptoms worse. There are some different types of POTS. I specifically have hypoadrenergic POTS as well as a mixture with hypovolemic POTS. But first we're going to talk about neuropathic POTS, and that is damage to the small fiber nerves that regulate constriction of the blood vessels. And I have this issue with my blood vessels and not being able to constrict, so yeah, I fit under multiple types basically. So on top of that, hyperadrenergic POTS, which is the main one I have, is those elevated stress hormones. So with me, my body produces an unreasonably amount of adrenaline constantly pumping through my veins, which makes my severe anxiety crazy, and it's really tough. It also causes things like my hands to shake. The tremors are all from my adrenal issues. Next is hypovolemic POTS, which is the abnormal low levels of blood in the body, and you can especially see this when there's blood pooling and all of the blood goes down to your body because you don't have enough in your body, which can cause you to get even sicker during these position changes. And last is secondary POTS, which is POTS associated with another condition. Conditions such as comorbid disorders like EDS, mast cell activation syndrome, adrenal deficiency, diabetes, Lyme disease, and autoimmune disorders, as well as others, can all be a contributing factor into POTS, or it may be something you have along with POTS. Lastly, I wanted to talk about treatment. Medications have been a big influencer in my recovery, I guess. I haven't recovered. It's just, it helps get better, and they can help control certain functions. So for me, with my heart rate issues that are caused by the adrenaline pumping, I have an extremely high heart rate, and it will jump even higher just because it wants to, and it'll make me sick, and I can have panic attacks, and it's also worse than my panic attacks. So I take medication to regulate my heart rate. I take anxiety meds, and both of those help. I also take, it helps with the blood pooling and constricting the veins, and just certain things like that to help those symptoms. It's not going to make them all go away, but it's going to make them better, hopefully. Lots of salt water and electrolytes in your system. It improves the health. Exercise like swimming to increase your cardiorespiratory endurance and overall strength in your heart. Leg workouts to strengthen muscles and help those blood vessels contract. Another thing is, of course, service dogs to help mitigate some of these symptoms. Like little Miss Luna does her item retrieval, so I don't have to bend down and pick stuff up, and I don't get sick from it. And then also different types of therapy. There's many more options out there to work through this stuff, but I wanted to hit the little highlight. I know it's a lot of information to throw at you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know it's long and informational, but I felt like it was something I wanted to discuss and get information out there. So hopefully you enjoyed. Yeah, I'm gonna try to do a lot more videos. I'm gonna have some more time now, hopefully. So I've posted already, and I'm gonna post again soon. And yeah, I hope everyone is doing well.